All right, day 3. Hello, algebra classes. Hopefully you're doing well. Hopefully you're having some kind of fun. Hopefully everything's making sense. And I'm hoping that maybe I'll be seeing you in a week. But here's hoping. Today, what we're going to talk about is Box and Whisker Plots. Everybody's favorite way to show data. Okay, maybe not everybody's, but it's got a fun name. Box and Whisker Plots. Just like the other days, hopefully you got something that you're writing down on, whether it's the slides, maybe print it out, blank sheet of paper, just something. Hopefully you're writing down and following along. So just like yesterday, we're going to start with some vocabulary. Our first word is quartile. Quartiles, we're going to have 3 of them. There are 3 values that divide a set into 4 equal parts. Quartile, it's almost kind of like quarter. It's going to separate our data into 4 equal parts. So we're going to have 3 that we're worried about. Quartile 1, 2, and 3. We'll just start calling them Q1, Q2, and Q3 for the remainder of this lesson. So let's take a look at this data set, 2, 2, 4, 4, 4, 5, 6, 8, 8, 8, 9. So our quartiles are going to be the ones that divide everything up. The easiest one to find first is Q2. Q2 is going to be our middle value. And if you remember from yesterday, what do we call the middle value of a data set? It's our median. That is going to be our Q2. So we're actually not going to use Q2 to really call much of anything that. We're just going to say median, knowing that that is our Q2. Now, how do we find our Q1 and our Q3? You're going to look at where the median has separated our data, and you're going to find the middles of those. So the median of the first half, that's going to be our Q1. And then the median of our second half, that is going to be our Q3, not Q2, Q3. So quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3 kind of is about what that means, but they're really quartiles. Excuse me. Our next vocab thing that we got to know is the interquartile range, which we will call IQR. So if you remember range from yesterday, we took our max and we subtracted our min. This is going to be similar. For interquartile range, we're going to take our Q3 and we're going to subtract our Q1. So it's the difference between the third and the first quartile. So not max minus min, but Q3 minus Q1, that is going to be our IQR. So for our data set above, Q3 was 8, Q1 was 4, so our interquartile range is 4. Finally, our 5-number summary. This is what's going to help us read Box and Whiskers, going to help us draw Box and Whiskers. Our 5-number summary includes our Q1, Q2, and Q3. It's also going to include our minimum and our maximum. So looking at our data set, our minimum value, our smallest value is 2, our Q1 is 4, our median is 5, our Q3 is 8, and our max is 9, and that's going to be our 5-number summary. Get used to that. We're doing that for all these Box and Whisker plots. All right, here we go. So we're going to use our data to identify the 5-number summary. If you notice about the data, it's already listed from smallest to largest, so I would like for you to write it down. Before we jump into anything, maybe you should be thinking about it. Maybe you should be pausing the video right now and thinking about, can I identify my min, my Q1, my median, my Q3, and my max? Try it out before I jump into things. So pause right here before I even start talking about it, and come back in just a moment. So just like the previous slide, to me, it's going to be easiest to first find the median. So we're going to break up our data set into 2 equal groups, looking for that number in the middle. This data set has 10 values, so it doesn't have a middle number. It has 2 numbers in the middle. So we got to find the middle of those 2 middle numbers. If If you remember from yesterday, how do we find the average? Excuse me, I just actually said it. We're going to find the average of these two middle values. So we're going to take 75. We're going to add it to 85, divide by 2, and that's going to give us our median. Is 80. Sorry, I'm just jumping around. Finding Q1 and Q3, so sorry about that. You're going to find the middles of your top half and middles of your bottom half. So looking at the bottom half, our Q1 is going to be the middle of this set right here. So it looks like this 75 right there where my mouse is, that is going to be our Q1. Over on the upper side, the middle of that set over there is the 95. There's going to be our Q1 and our Q3. Now we're going to write all of our numbers down, max and min, since it's already listed from smallest to greatest, you should be able to see. So let's fill this in. Our minimum is 60, our Q1 is 75, our Q2, our median is 80, our Q3 is 95, and our max is 105. And hopefully you're able to calculate some of those even kind of without me explaining there at the start. This is what a box and whisker plot looks like. So we have this box here, we have the whiskers, and then we have these little end marks. So what does everything represent? If you look all the way to the left where you got that little tick mark down there, that's going to be where you're going to put your minimum value. So your whisker to the left is going to extend all the way to your minimum value. Your whisker to the right, that's going to extend all the way to your maximum value. And how do you draw the box? The left end of the box is where your Q1 is. The right end of the box is where your Q3 is, and then you're going to draw an extra line in that box. It doesn't have to be in the middle. It might be closer to Q3, it might be closer to Q1, but you're going to draw an extra line in your box, and that's going to be where your median is. So when you're done with your box and whisker plot, I should see a rectangle with a line in it, a line that extends over to the max, and a line that extends over to the minimum. Now, what's nice about a box and whisker plot, and again, thinking about these quartiles, is you can tell how much data is in each section. The median, the Q2, is right in the middle. So that means 50% of our data is to the left of it, 50% of our data is to the right of it. And thinking about our quartiles, inside of those 50%, when you look at Q1, 25% of the data is between your minimum and your lower quartile. 25% of your data is between Q1 and your median. And it's going to look the same on the other side, where between our median and our upper quartile, there's 25% of our data. And between our Q3 and our max, there's another 25% of our data over there. So a box and whisker plot breaks up the way we can see our data into 4 chunks about where the data is located. Not so much about what the values are besides our 5 numbers, but how much of the data is there. So the interquartile range is our last thing for this slide, is always 50% of the data. So the box shows you where half of your data values lies in that box from Q1 to Q3. Interquartile range, Q3 minus Q1. So I'm going to walk through how to draw a box and whisker plot, and then you're going to try one on your own, but you can follow along for this one. So given 5, 20, 28, 34, and 45 for our min, our quartiles, and our max, how do we get started? So the first thing you're going to need to do is make a number line. You're going to put your minimum at one end, your maximum at the other, and then you're going to fill in some nice even tick marks, spread them out nicely. For this one, it actually works out to go up by 5s. It looks quite nice. So what we're going to do when we're drawing our box and whisker plot, we like to normally draw them above this number line. So let's move that over. We're going to draw our box from Q1 to Q3. So you're going to draw a rectangle where the left end of the rectangle is at 20, so that's going to be over here. The right end of the rectangle, 34, is going to be just about here, just short of 35. We're going to make a box between those, and then we're going to draw an extra line in that box at our Q2, our median, at 28, which is going to be right about there. So there's our box. There's our extra line. That's about 34. That's about 28. Now we need our whiskers. So you're going to draw points where your max and min are and connect them with your whiskers. And there is our box and whisker plot. We don't really need to do much labeling as long as you can kind of tell from the number line what's going on. That's how you construct your box and whisker plot. You just need these 5 numbers. So you're going to try this next. Got 6 data values right here. What do you have to do? You have to find the 5-number summary accurately. You're going to draw your box and whisker. So at this point, I would like for you to pause and try this on your own. Write this down. Try to draw this yourself using our data set of 12, 30, 19, 15, 18, and 22. Come back when you're done. I'll go through it with you. So first thing I always like to do is put them in order. Hopefully you did that. You will notice we have an even data set. So when we're finding our median, which is right in the middle of our middle, we're going to take an average of 18 and 19 since those are the middle numbers. That's going to be our 18.5. Now, if you draw that line down the middle of our data set, the middle of our first group of 3 of 12, 15, and 18, that's 15, which is why that's Q1. Over there on the right, the middle of those 3 data points, 19, 22, and 30, is 22. Our minimum is 12, our maximum is 30, and now it's time to create our box and whisker plot. So we got to get our number line. Sorry about that, kind of jumped ahead a little bit. So we're going to need to put 10 to 30 looks like a good spread. 12 is near 10, which lets us put our nice tick marks at 5s. And then we're going to make our box with our Q1 and our Q3. Our Q1 is at 15. Our Q3 is at 22, which is right about there, a little less than halfway between 20 and 25. Now we're going to need to draw an extra line where 18.5 is in our box. 18.5 is going to be somewhere about there-ish. And don't forget about our max and our min for our whiskers. And there is our box and whisker plot from scratch from our data set. All right, so box and whisker plot gives a nice overview of data's central tendency. So we're going to compare and contrast a little bit of Mr. Scarlett's class. Looks like we have test scores and Mrs. Plum's class's test scores. So what is the median of Mr. Scarlett's class? So when looking at the box and whisker, remember the whiskers give you the min and max. The ends of the boxes give you the first quartile and the third quartile, and the line in the center, or not the center of the box, inside the box, I should say, that's going to give us our second quartile, aka our median. So looking at Mr. Scarlett's line inside the box for our median, draw it down. If I'm eyeballing this right, looks like we got 78. The median for Mrs. Plum's class, we're going to look at this line right here. That looks like that is at 84. The interquartile range for Mr. Scarlett's class, remember IQR is Q3 minus Q1, so we got to do a little work here. I would like for you to pause and actually think about this for a second. I would like for you to calculate Mr. Scarlett and Mrs. Plum's box and whisker plot IQRs for me before you look at the answers. So give yourself a moment, look at the slide, think about what numbers these line up with, see if you can tell just by eyeballing it. All right, So hopefully you calculated it. To me, I think I got Q3 for Mr. Scarlet at 85. It looks like Q1 is at 71. I can't remember. I got it at 70. Never mind. I can't even see. So 85 minus 70, our interquartile range for Mr. Scarlet's class is 15. Looking at Mrs. Plum's, hopefully you did this one as well. Looks like our Q3 is at 91. Looks like our Q1, is at 67. Now to find their interquartile range, we're going to do 91 minus 67, giving us 24. Now, what is the difference in the IQRs? Tell us. So remember, Mr. Scarlet's was 15, Mrs. Plum's was 24. Remember about the interquartile range, that's where 50% of our data is. So in Mrs. Plum's class, the grades were a lot more spread out because 50% of the students, their scores were 24 apart, kind of. We had this range of 24 where 50% of the data was. So you had some kids scoring a lot lower than some others. Where in Mr. Scarlet's, half of the class was only 15 apart from each other. So a little bit more clumped together, a little bit closer to what their scores are. And that will be it for our Box and Whisker plots. Hopefully, again, this made sense. Got one more Google form to be filling out for me today after this. Give you a chance to show me if you understood this stuff, ask any questions. Tomorrow, we're looking at doing a Math Excel assignment. If you can't get into Math Excel, you're going to have to send me an email and I'm going to have to help you out. But make sure that that gets done tomorrow. And then Friday, we have a worksheet that you're going to be submitting on Google Classroom for me. So make sure you're looking out for that as well. But otherwise, hopefully, again, this went well. Hopefully you're keeping notes. Hopefully everything's feeling kind of all right. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. And I'll talk to you later.